By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion. As one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen in fire or land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes, temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature, appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Sri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Dharma pujita kaitruvotra paramo nirmatsanam sitam vedyam vastavam atra vastu shivadam tapa trayon mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kimba Purir Ishvaraha Sadyo Hidya Varudyate Tra Krite Bihi Sususubis Takshanat. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated, this Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees which are fully pure in heart. Which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient within itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. Igama kalpatarur galitam phalam sukha mukad amritam dravya samyutam pibata bhagavatam rasam alayam muhur aho rasika bhuvi bhavakaha. O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desire tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 8. Text 38. As the name and fame of a particular body is finished with the disappearance of the living spirit, similarly, if you do not look upon us, it's 37. We did that. Oh no, okay, I read it yesterday myself. That's right. Okay. Oh my Lord, you have executed all duties yourself. Are you leaving us today, though we are completely dependent on your mercy and have no one else to protect us? Now, when all kings are at enmity with us, oh my Lord, you have executed all duties yourself. Are you leaving us today, though we are completely dependent on your mercy and have no one else to protect us? Now, when all kings are at enmity with us. wrong. They put the comma in the wrong place. It should be, though we are completely dependent on your mercy and have no one else to protect us now, comma, when all kings are at enmity with us. If you read it, though we are completely dependent on your mercy and have no one else to protect us, now when all kings are at enmity with us. Anyway, it makes more sense with the comma after now, but it's understandable both ways. Purport. The Pandavas are most fortunate because with all good luck they were entirely dependent on the mercy of the Lord. In the material world, to be dependent on the mercy of someone else is the utmost sign of misfortune. But in the case of our transcendental relation with the Lord, it is the most fortunate case when we live completely dependent on Him. So that's a very important point. One of the points of, let's see, what is that point? One of the things that is detrimental for devotional service to be dependent on the mercy of a mundane person. Whereas devotees, so that is considered misfortune. Prabhupada said, utmost sign of misfortune. But the spiritual world, the material world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. So the same thing in the spiritual world, when one is dependent on the mercy of Krishna, that is the most wonderful thing. But the same thing in the material world, when one is dependent on the mercy of a mundane person, that is the most unfortunate thing. So it's very interesting. But in the case of our transcendental relation with the Lord, it is the most fortunate case when we can live completely dependent on Him. The material disease is due to thinking of becoming independent of everything. But the cruel material nature does not allow us to become independent. The false attempt to become independent of the stringent laws of nature is known as material advancement of experimental knowledge. So this is what's being taught in schools, and and because of that, people right from their early ages are being misled to think that through science, logic, and reason, the scientific method of experimentation and so forth, they can understand matter. The scientists claim that they're experts in matter, but they don't understand matter. Their understanding of matter is false. And the way they study it is it's completely independent from God. God is something, in their estimation, fictional. It's a crutch, a psychological crutch that people need to help them deal with suffering in life. And but the scientists are above that. They don't need God. They don't need a crutch. They can solve all problems with science and speculation. So it says, the material disease is due to thinking of becoming independent of everything. But the cruel material nature does not allow us to become independent. Yeah, because we can make so many things like airplanes and so forth, but they still fall down out of the sky. We can make jetties and all kinds of sophisticated things to control land that's below sea level. Still, there can be a massive hurricane and destroy everything. We can create beautiful farms and houses, but a volcano can erupt and destroy everything in a matter of one day. And so forth. There's earthquakes, and there's diseases. There are asteroid raids. Asteroids that fall on the Earth and change the whole weather pattern. There's so many things that can happen to show that we're not independent. That's why he says, but the cruel material nature does not allow us to become independent. The false attempt to become independent of the stringent laws of nature is known as material advancement of experimental knowledge. So the whole thing is false. All this experimental knowledge, scientific research, and so forth, it does not make us independent of the laws of nature. But that's their goal, but it doesn't work. The whole material world is moving on this false attempt of becoming independent of the laws of nature. Beginning from Ravana, who wanted to prepare a direct staircase to the planets of heaven, down to the present age, they are trying to overcome the laws of nature. They are trying now to approach distant planetary systems by electronic mechanical power. But the highest goal of human civilization is to work hard under the guidance of the Lord and become completely dependent on Him. The highest achievement of perfect civilization is to work with valor, but at the same time depend completely on the Lord. The Pandava, working with valor, that means courageously. It shouldn't be afraid of undertaking challenging projects to establish the glories of the Lord. But you must also depend completely on the Lord. The Pandavas were the ideal executors, or executors, depends how you pronounce it. Why don't you look it up on the internet, how to pronounce it? Is it either executors or executors? Yeah. The ideal executors of the standard of civilization. And is there a different meaning according to the way it's pronounced? Execute means you convict someone of murder and you kill them. You execute. Executor is as a noun. See, now the words have different meanings, can have different meanings as a noun or a verb. Executor is a person who has powers given to them, and they oversee organizations. They don't necessarily own it, but they have some certain power over organizations, like the executor of a will. In that case, it's not executor.
Yeah, so it says that the executor, a person or institution appointed by a testator to carry out the terms of their will.
Executor.
Executor.
How is it pronounced?
So there are two pronunciations. Executor.
See, you mispronounced it, Prabhu. You see, you have to learn the English language. That's why I'm pointing this out.
There is two pronunciations. Executor and executor. There are two pronunciations, and that's what it means. To produce something.
Now this is executor, a person or institution appointed by a testator to carry out the terms of their will. Executor or executor, a person who produces something or puts something into effect. Yeah.
So we are two.
Well, in law is executor.
Executor. Cutor.
And in normal life, it's either executor or executor. So it's better to use executor for law and executor and other. That way you don't mix it all up. What?
It doesn't carry the meaning of someone who executes.
Executor, yeah, it doesn't.
I mean, even the other pronunciation doesn't have the meaning.
What other pronunciation? Executor? Someone who kills someone?
Yeah, it says just the person.
No, that's why there's a difference between a noun and a verb.
But what's a noun with that meaning? Like the verb has that meaning, not like a noun with that meaning as well.
Not necessarily. You can look that up, but not necessarily. You're saying that executor does not have the meaning, executor does not have a meaning of killing someone. But look it up. Look the word up. If you execute, if someone is committed of murder and you execute them, that means they were killed.
In IT, there is a different meaning.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah,
In IT, when we do any project,
you do the project.
so there is a plan and we planning. The primary meaning of the word is carry out.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what.
And the secondary meaning is to kill someone. That's exactly right.
Yeah, so you see, it does have that meaning to kill
Using
someone.
the verb,
Yeah.
The noun, which is a different.
So I'm saying there's difference between nouns and verbs and in adjectives also. How the word is used.
So in it is so planning is then execution.
You execute, yeah.
Whatever the plan is, then
You get it done.
we are executing it.
Yeah.
That's executing.
Yeah,
But this is the noun
But
executor. You are
when we say the plan is ready, now is ready for execution.
execution. Yeah. So that's the difference. That's
So it will
verb.
continue.
That's verb. So the executor as a noun is what it's saying. So it's primarily with reference to the will. Is what just is definitely people.
Anyway, there's differences in meanings of words, whether they're used as noun or verb and even adjective. Yeah. And then there can be subtle differences in meaning by how you pronounce the word. There are words that are completely misleading, like for example, minute and minute, or insanity and insanity.
In space on dash sanity.
When you say insanity, it means crazy, right? But you can also spell it in two words. Insanity. That means a sane person. Whereas you put it in one word, insanity, means crazy. So you have to be very careful. And that's why I say the place of a comma or a colon or a semicolon, and whether it's used as a verb or a noun or an adjective, all these things have meaning, whether it's pronounced one way or pronounced another way. All these things, can make a difference in the meaning of a word. Executioner, he's a guy who kills people.
No, that might be the word. Executioner versus executor.
Executioner. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's another noun, though. That's a noun. Execution.
It's a noun. It's the official who carries out a sentence of death and legally condemned.
Yeah. No, but you can say the criminal will be executed in such and such prison on such a date. So it can be used as a verb also to mean killing someone. The whole material world is moving on this false attempt of becoming independent of the laws of nature, beginning from Ravana, who wanted to prepare a direct staircase to the planets of heaven. Down to the present age, they are trying to overcome the laws of nature. They are trying now to approach distant planetary systems by electronic mechanical power. What is electronic mechanical power? So, you see, just recently, the first airplane took off that's run by electricity. It's not using fuel. Okay? So, when they talk about electronic mechanical power, they're talking about catching the rays, electromagnetic waves of the sun, which are in space, right? And give energy to the mechanism of propelling a rocket in outer space. That way they don't have to refuel it. Normally you have to refuel airplanes, right? But rockets that go in outer space, how are you going to refuel them? Well, that's why they can get, I guess, we call this sundials, or they call those solar panels to catch the electromagnetic waves of the sun that are in outer space, and that can power the motors or whatever it is of the rocket. So, see how Prabhupada is very brilliant. they're trying to approach distant planetary systems by electronic mechanical power. But the highest goal of civilization is to work hard under the guidance of the Lord and become completely dependent on Him. This is a motto. The motto is a statement that should serve as the functioning goal of people. And this is something we should copy this, just like we have one motto downstairs in the entrance. We should copy this and put this up also. Who wants to do that? Huh?
What do you have to do?
To copy this, put a poster in the downstairs.
There's already a poster downstairs with a motto, right? You ever read it in the entrance? No. Although it's a big poster, it's the biggest poster on the left-hand side when you enter. So you should read it on the way out today, right? That's called a motto. It's a statement of a purpose for society, right? So this is another motto. The highest goal of human civilization is to work hard under the guidance of the Lord and become completely dependent on Him. The highest achievement of perfect civilization is to work with valor, but at the same time depend completely on the Lord. So those two sentences are the motto. And someone should copy them and put them up somewhere in the temple. Huh?
I will call you.
Haribo. The Pandavas were the ideal executors of the standard of civilization. So should it be executors or executors? Huh? Executor. I think so, yeah. Undoubtedly, they were completely dependent on the goodwill of Lord Sri Krishna. But they were not idle parasites of the Lord. Idle parasites. See, the Prabhupada is amazing. They were all highly qualified both by personal character and by physical activities. You see, personal character, physical activities. It's not by personal character only. Still, they always looked for the mercy of the Lord because they knew that every living being is dependent by constitutional position. What does that mean? Dependent by constitutional position. Very important phrase. I'll stop in a minute. What does that mean? Dependent by constitutional. What does it mean, constitutional position? Yeah, constitution means that's the way you're made, right? So you can't change it. That's the fundamental quality that you're born with. So we're all constitutional servants of the Lord. So we're all dependent. Trying to live independent of God is going against our constitutional position. Yes. Exactly right. Yeah. The perfection of life is therefore to become dependent on the will of the Lord instead of becoming falsely independent in the material world. So you see how Prabhupada here is indicting, basically accusing modern education of misleading people. Right? That's why we shouldn't send our kids to public schools. Terrible, terrible decision. You're forcing them to be indoctrinated with this false concept of independence of the Lord, and you'll regret it later on because the kid will become an atheist because they're being indoctrinated every day that they're in these schools. Every day they're being indoctrinated with the wrong concept of life. Those who try to become falsely independent of the Lord are called anatta, or without any guardian, whereas those who are completely dependent on the will of the Lord are called sanata, or those who having someone to protect them. This is why there's so many kids that commit suicide or try and kill other kids or are frustrated or take drugs or become addicted to all kinds of bad habits because they feel as if they're alone and there's no one to protect them. And they get into anxiety and fear and angry. They become alienated from their parents by this educational system. And they become educated on the internet by demons that teach them all kinds of aberrant behavior. And eventually you lose them. That's what's happening. Therefore, so if the child knows, I have someone to protect me, that's Krishna, then they don't lose, let's say, self-confidence. They don't lose their self-worth. They're not alone in this world struggling. Therefore, we must try to be sanata so that we can always be protected from the unfavorable condition of material existence. By the deluding power of the external material nature, we forget that the material condition of life is the most undesirable perplexity. Wow, Prabhupada's language is amazing. The Bhagavad Gita therefore directs us, 7:19, that after many, many births, one fortunate person becomes aware of the fact that Vasudeva is all in all, and that the best way of leading one's life is to surrender unto him completely. So, are our kids coming to this conclusion early in life? I would say, for many of them, no. Because we have failed them in education. That is the sign of a Mahatma. All the members of the Pandava family were Mahatmas in household life. Maharaj Yudhisthira was the head of these Mahatmas, and Queen Kunti was the mother. So you see, he says, Mahatmas in household life. Another amazing phrase. That means you are Mahatma in household life. Usually Mahatma, you're wearing orange and you're living a renounced life and so forth. But you can be also Mahatma in household life. All the members of the Pandavas were Mahatmas in household life. Maharaj Yudhisthira was the head of these Mahatmas, and Queen Kunti was the mother. The lessons of the Bhagavad Gita and all the Puranas, specifically the Bhagavata Purana, are therefore inevitably connected with the history of the Pandava Mahatmas. For them, separation from the world was just like the separation of a fish from water. Shrimati Kunti Devi therefore felt such separation like a thunderbolt, and the whole prayer of the queen is to try to persuade the Lord to stay with them. After the battle of Kurukshetra, although the inimical kings were killed, their sons and grandsons were still there to deal with the Pandavas. It is not only the Pandavas who were put into the condition of enmity, but all of us are always in such a condition. And the best way of living is to become completely dependent on the will of the Lord and thereby overcome all difficulties of material existence. So we see that this whole purport is about dependence on the Lord. How many times does he repeat it in this purport? Huh?
Every other sentence is
Right. And what are our kids taught in school? Not to be dependent on God. That God is just a fiction. You see? So the opposite of what Bhagavatam is teaching is taught to our kids in school on a daily basis. On a daily basis. And unless we realize that, we'll be committing a serious offense of forcing our kids to be subjected to that constant indoctrination in school. So-called school. It's not school. It is a slaughterhouse. Prabhupada uses that word, slaughterhouse. It's like sending your kid to the slaughterhouse where they kill cows. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi. Haribol, Haribol. Yeah.
What is the workaround? We don't have any workaround.
What?
If there is any other school that where we can send the kids.
We're looking for alternate